The Switch 2 is here and I've had it for about a month now, so let's get into the full review, the Techie Sethi Techie breakdown. We know that Nintendo definitely gave us a great upgrade for the Switch 2, from the larger display, the bigger Joy-Cons, the much better performance. There's so many different things that Nintendo changed from all over that really made the Switch 2 a really great upgrade from the original Switch and also the OLED version. So first, there is definitely a larger display. So the Switch 2 has a 7.9-inch LCD display. So that's important because originally it's more so like 6.2 inches, I think, is the actual display dimensions. I could be wrong. But needless to say, the 7-inch on the OLED, coming from that to the Switch 2, which is a 7.9-inch display, is a big leap. I want to say that the Switch 2, the graphics and performance on this thing is a master house. Display is just stunning. I love playing it in the daytime. I have no issues seeing it whatsoever. It's very bright and very crisp, but it's definitely noticeable that it's not OLED. So to compare the Switch OLED to the Switch itself, there's a lot to unpack here. So we definitely have way better Joy-Cons with the magnetic grip. We also have way better ergonomics with holding it and playing with the SL and SR buttons on the Joy-Cons themselves. We also have the new C button for game chat and game share features. We also have this new magnetic thing that I am obsessively constantly using in handheld mode. A new USB-C port on the top, a better 3D surround sound, and a bigger display. That's also a 1080p display compared to the 720p display. So that's a nice upgrade. We have better internal storage, which starts at 256 gigabytes. So that is a major change compared to the original Switch. We also have a brand new kickstand that is so amazing. I'm obsessed with this. It looks so modern and sleek. And I'm gonna pop it up right there. And they also added much better grip, so when it's like sitting on the table, it doesn't slide, so that's nice. Portability, I think that this Switch 2 is completely portable, just like the original Switch was. I think it's at the perfect size. I feel like if it gets any bigger, it's going to be much more difficult to be carried like on a plane or in smaller bags. You definitely want to get a case or something that's going to protect that, and I have the perfect case for that.
So I've been looking for the perfect Switch 2 case, but unfortunately I just couldn't find anything that really looked aesthetic and it was exactly what I was looking for, and of course had things like orange details until this guy. So this is the Tomtoc Switch 2 carrying sling case. This thing can fit everything that you see here. And of course on the inside it has a whole place to put the Pro Controller. I can throw this USB-C charging cord in this little pocket over here. Then I can throw the Switch in there itself. In addition, it has room to fit both of these guys. It also has the game card slot, so I can throw the Switch 2 games in there. I think I'm just gonna keep them in here and just tuck them in here because I don't know, I'm kind of scared they're gonna fall out. And I can even throw in the camera. It kind of matches my outfit. I've enjoyed using it, and it's a very hard case, and no, this is not sponsored. It just definitely does exactly what I expected from it, honestly. It's very tough, so I love it. It's my aesthetic.
Let's talk about the new dock. So the Switch 2 dock is completely changed from the original Switch dock that now has Ethernet, but it also has cooling fans at the bottom. So fans keep them cool and allow you to play much better graphics and get much better performance when it's in the dock. And all it's using upscaling in DLSS to really take advantage of the Switch 2 performance and upscale those games from 1080p to 4K that you can play while docked. So now I want to talk about the Switch OLED compared to the Switch 2. So this right here is the Switch 2, and my little friend over here is the OLED. Oh. This is the OLED version of the Switch. Comparing the kickstands, there's definitely a bigger difference, as you can tell. I'm struggling. So this is the Switch OLED here, and this is the Switch 2. I genuinely thought that it was going to be much better compared to the Switch 2, but this feels so cheap and like very plasticky. It's much thicker plastic, and it doesn't really feel as flimsy compared to the original Switch OLED. Putting it in this little kickstand mode, it slides more, whereas the Switch 2 is more sturdy, and I feel like it's going to actually be much more convenient and much more of a better gaming experience. The Joy-Cons compare this Switch to the Switch 2. They are drastically different. I would say they're about 25% larger. This is I think this is the Smash Bros. Joy-Con edition. So it has very, very, very tiny buttons. Like these buttons were originally, they had to be for toddlers because without the Joy-Con, the straps, I mean, this was horrible playing like this. But this one, they don't even have like buttons in the straps, and it's so nice to actually play and use, and just clicking them is just so satisfying. And they're actually so much bigger, and I love the blue and orange detailing. I think they kind of knew those were my favorite colors, so they made them that, but what am I to say? They are so much more premium for the Switch 2, and I love that they magnetically attach. I mean, it's just, I can't stop doing it, and they hold so well. Like, they're not coming off. Like, you can shake it as much as you want, but until you press this trigger button to release them, they're not going anywhere. The Switch OLED version only has this one USB-C port, so it doesn't support things like the camera, which I can just plug in here, and I can use while I'm playing in tabletop mode or kickstand mode or whatever you want to call it. So it's really cool that they implemented a new USB-C port, and it's also convenient for charging and playing at the same time. So another big difference is of course the internal storage. It's capped at 64 gigabytes internally for the OLED and 256 for the Switch 2. The original Switch features a regular micro SD card slot, whereas the new Switch 2 is a micro SD Express. And why they did that, I have no idea. But I'm grateful that I didn't actually end up needing to purchase one, because the internal storage was sufficient, and I also store all my games in the cloud because of the Nintendo Switch Online membership, which we will also touch on that in just a second. So the speakers on the Switch compared to the Switch 2 is just completely game-changing. Like, playing Mario Kart World is very loud. It's gonna be really hard to pick up on camera, but they also feature 3D audio, which is really cool, so it feels like the sounds are coming from all over. It's kind of like Dolby Atmos for your Nintendo Switch. I wouldn't say it's game-changing. You can hear the difference compared to the original Switch. The volume, the sound is coming from like all around. Let's see if the sound will come up. The sound it's two bottom speakers, so it's not drastically different, but I can definitely tell that there is a big difference with the 3D audio on the Switch 2. Holding the Switch OLED and then holding the Switch 2, I genuinely love how comfortable and nice the Switch 2 is to hold, whereas the Switch, it's just so tiny, and the ergonomics of it just feels a little uncomfortable to hold after a while, especially if you rest it in the middle of your palm. Thankfully, it's not heavy, so that's great. Yeah, it's something I've noticed now that I've gotten the Switch 2 and I've gotten more used to it. So let's talk about battery life. Like I mentioned previously, the Switch OLED has an OLED display, and then the Switch 2 bounced back and went to an LCD display. That's important because the battery on the Switch 2 actually is 5,220 milliamp hours. The Switch 2 battery is actually 5,220 milliamp hours. Thank you. And then the OLED Switch has 4,310 milliamp hours. But you can expect around 4 to 6.5 hours just on battery on the Switch OLED, whereas the Switch 2, ranges about 2 to 6.5 hours. And that's important because that feels like a step back. And the reason is because the Switch OLED has an OLED display. And if you know anything about TVs and displays, this means that it's more energy efficient and that there's going to be higher contrast of colors that are more vibrant and darker blacks. Whereas LCD display is just a typical display that it does look beautiful at 1080p, but unfortunately it just doesn't compare to what an OLED could offer. So hopefully in the near future we can expect a Nintendo Switch 2 OLED version, which I will definitely get my hands on because that will be the ultimate Switch. I can feel it. And of course, like I mentioned, another big difference between these two is the Switch 2 has game chat and game share and all of the cool online features. In addition, if you get the Nintendo Switch Online membership that has the expansion pack, you get full access to cloud gaming. You get Nintendo 64, GameCube, SNES. What's the other? There's so many that they have that you can literally play. Oh, Game Boy, NES, Super NES, Sega Genesis. There's so many that you can play. And in addition to that, with the Switch 2, you also get access to Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive titles that if you already own, like The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, you'll get a free upgrade for, which usually would cost 20 bucks. But if you have the membership, which is around $50 USD for the entire year, you can get access to. And I think that is a really cool deal, especially if you want to play titles like Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker, which I've never played before, and I'm getting my first chance to play on the Switch itself. So it's a really cool steal, and you just can't beat it with that upgrade. And another big difference between the Switch OLED and then the Switch 2 is the price. So the Switch OLED is going to start around $350, and then the Switch 2 is going to start at $450. So there's a $100 price gap between these two. Is it worth it? If you have the Switch OLED, is it worth it? I will say if you have the original Switch, abso-freaking-lutely, it's a complete game changer, upgrading from the Switch to the Switch 2. Now, if you have the Switch OLED, there's more to consider because of the price and also what exactly you're looking for. So, for example, if you have currently the Switch OLED, which I did, and I sold it, and you really are looking forward to those Switch 2 exclusive titles, you want the better performance, you want the 4K 60 frames per second on the dock, and that also supports 1440p, 120 frames per second, which they said Metroid Prime will support, which is really cool, then yes, it is worth the upgrade. And I honestly could not say it and emphasize it more. If it's something you've been saving for and something you really are interested in getting, then absolutely go for it. Get it, because you're not going to be disappointed, and playing games like Fortnite is such a complete game changer on the Switch 2. However, if you're more content and you're very happy with playing games like Animal Crossing or things that don't need that extra graphics performance, and you have access to your entire favorites like Splatoon or just Legend of Zelda, any game that is already on the Switch, and you're happy with that, then no problem. I wouldn't suggest upgrading until you have more of those exclusive games that you're looking forward to, like Donkey Kong Bonanza that's going to be out in 2 weeks exclusively on the Nintendo Switch 2. It's things like that it really comes down to a personal choice of whether if you want to sacrifice what you have for something new and really get into those Switch 2 exclusive games, or you want to be content and hold off until something better comes along in the future. It's up to you. But I'm just throwing it out there. I did it because I thought for me it was worth it. One thing I didn't mention that I want to talk about is the mouse mode on the Switch 2. The mouse mode is so freaking cool. It knows exactly when I'm switching to and from the mouse, switch back and forth effortlessly. It's ridiculous how smooth it is and picks up that you're using a mouse rather than the controller itself. So I think that's about it for my full review. and we're gonna do something new for the channel. If you don't already, please subscribe, like, comment, and turn on those bell notifications when I post new videos. It really helps me and supports my channel and help me keep growing and keep making more content for you guys. But also, I'm really excited to share that we're gonna do something new for reviews. It's called the Techie Sethi Techie Stars. So that was so dramatic. Each review that I'll do from now on, I'm gonna rate it out of 5 stars, what I think it's gonna be, and not just any star. Of course it's going to be a magic star, come on. So for the Switch 2, I definitely want to give it a 4.5 star review. And the reason why it's not a 5 star, I know, boo-hoo. I know it's not a perfect score, but the reason it boils down to the cost. And let me explain. So this bad boy right here starts at $450. And then you want to get the camera. And then you want to get things like the Pro Controller, which is another $85. Things like that add up. In addition to that, you want Switch 2 exclusive games. That's $80 for things like Mario Kart World or Donkey Kong Bonanza. It gets pricey, really fast. And you can drop a whole bag on this guy. It's really inconvenient for those gamers that don't have the funds that they would like to really play the games that they want. And it's unfortunate that we live in a world where we have to pay a whole arm and a leg for things that we want to have for pleasure. But unfortunately, that is the realistic world view of the world. I'm losing my train of thought. You get the point. Things can get pretty pricey, and it's unfortunate that they are so pricey. But at the end of the day, it is a very solid upgrade, and it has all the features and things that you would expect for an upgrade, and then some. When they originally announced the Switch 2, I really was looking forward to having a 3D Mario, and I swear when they were doing the Nintendo Direct and they showed Donkey Kong Bonanza, I thought that it was Super Mario Odyssey 2, and I got really excited, but I was kind of let down. Honestly, I'm not a really big Donkey Kong person, but I will say Donkey Kong Bonanzas look very similar to Super Mario Odyssey, so I'm really excited to play that game. It'll probably be one of my first Donkey Kong games aside from Mario vs. Donkey Kong that I had on the DS. Oh my god, I forgot about that. I'm really looking forward to that, and hopefully we can get a Nintendo Direct soon, and I'm really excited for a 3D Mario, so hopefully we'll get that in the future. Who exactly is the Switch 2 for? It's for the diehard fans. It's for the ones that will sacrifice the price, will sacrifice... I don't know what else you would sacrifice. You want all that Nintendo has to offer and then some. With the expansion pack and all of the cool features and accessories that the Switch 2 can offer, I think it's a great choice for those that are exclusive Nintendo gamers or just love Nintendo as a whole and can really take advantage of what Nintendo has to offer with the Switch 2. So it all boils down to what you want. Do you want to continue with what you have? Or if you're in the market for the Switch system entirely and you're debating between the Switch OLED, and the Switch 2, I will say the Switch OLED is a solid choice. You can't go wrong with it. But if you really need those Switch 2 exclusive titles, of course get the Switch 2, especially if you get the expansion pass for Nintendo membership that's online. It's definitely worth it. Definitely recommend for those exclusive titles. But Switch OLED will still be supported. You can still play online, do all the great things that the Switch 2 can do, but just more limited and don't have access to the Switch 2 exclusive games and genres. With that being said, thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Turn on those bell notifications for more. Of course, there's going to be more content about the Switch exclusive titles like the Donkey Kong Bonanza that I'll post for you guys. Keep a lookout for my shorts that I have coming, and of course, like always, be you, stay true, love you, Souls.